Walking into a meeting in English, if English isn't your first language, can be terrifying. You have brilliant ideas to share, but the fear of making a mistake or saying something that sounds weird can often keep you silent when you should be speaking up. So that's why in this video, I'm going to give you 25 really good English phrases that we use in meetings every single day. So that'll help you to elevate your English, make you sound more natural, confident, and professional. We have a lot to cover today, so let's dive right in. Now, let's start with something that we have to do in pretty much every single meeting that we attend at work, and that is express our opinion about something, share with the group how we feel about something. So let's look at some good phrases to do that. Phrase number one. I love this one. It's very eloquent. I use it all the time. In my view. In my view. This means in my opinion, in my perspective. For example, in my view, this approach won't work long term. You could also say, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm concerned, this is the best option we have. A little less formal would be, I'd say, I'd say. Here, I'd is the contraction for I would. I'd say this is the best option we have. I'd say this is the best option we have. And we also have to often ask other people what they think. So here are some phrases to do this. Phrase number 4, we can simply just say, what do you think? What do you think? If you need to be a little more formal in the meeting, the more formal version of this phrase would be, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? Phrase number 5, you could also say, do you have any input? Do you have any input? Here, input is an opinion, an idea, a thought, feedback. Do you have any input? Phrase number 6, we can also just tell the person directly that we want to hear their opinion. So we can say, I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to hear from you. And it's often polite in English-speaking cultures to use the person's name, to use their first name. So I'd like to hear from you, John. I'd like to hear from you, John. Moving on, let's now talk about some good phrases we can use when we want to agree with people. I will say in the US, we're usually more enthusiastic when we agree with people. In fact, we're probably more enthusiastic about most things. So if you want to show somebody that you agree strongly with what they say, you can say, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Couple bonus words here. You can also say exactly, exactly, or absolutely, absolutely. When I worked in the UK, I heard my colleagues use the phrase spot on quite a bit. It means the same thing. Exactly, absolutely, spot on, that's spot on. Phrase number 8, you can also say, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. What you're saying is logical. It makes perfect sense. If you want to just partially agree with somebody, maybe you don't agree with everything that they're saying, you can say, I agree to an extent. I agree to an extent. I agree to an extent. Extent is a limit. It means you agree, but only up to a certain point. I agree to an extent. Quick timeout, guys. If you're finding this video helpful so far, let me know by hitting the like button. That gives me some great feedback about the topics that are helpful for you. But while we're on the subject of business English, I have an email phrasebook out. It's got 200 phrases, both informal and formal, for everyday email situations. I'll put the link down in the description. Go check it out. Now let's talk about disagreeing with people in meetings. Disagreeing can be a little awkward, sometimes uncomfortable. And I will say in English-speaking cultures, in the US, in the UK, for example, we very rarely strongly disagree in English. Even if we do completely disagree with what somebody is saying, we're a little polite, a little softer in how we express that disagreement. So let's look at some good phrases on how to disagree with people. Phrase number 10, I'm not sure I agree. I'm not sure I agree. So even if you are sure and you know that you disagree, it's still polite to just say you're not sure. I'm not sure I agree. You could also say phrase number 11, I have a different point of view. I have a different point of view. Point of view here is a perspective, an opinion. I think differently. I have a different point of view. Now, there are times, of course, when you do need to be strong in your disagreement. So if you have to express it that way, you'd say, to be blunt, I completely disagree. To be blunt, I completely disagree. To be blunt is to be straight to the point, being direct. You're not holding anything back about how you feel. To be blunt, I completely disagree. Let's move on to some phrases for asking for clarification. And I will say, you guys, if English isn't your first language and there's a word or a phrase in a meeting that you don't understand, it's okay to ask questions. The worst thing you can do is to pretend that you know what's going on or to pretend that you understand when you really don't. So here are some phrases that we can use to ask for clarification. Could you help me understand? Could you help me understand? Could you help me understand that last point a bit better? So you're inviting them to elaborate and to clarify and explain what they meant. Could you help me understand? Phrase number 14. I'm sorry, I didn't quite follow. That means I didn't quite understand what you said. I didn't quite follow. Phrase number 15. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I love this phrase because it shows some humility. It shows that you don't know everything. You're open to being corrected. Correct me if I'm wrong, but correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this outside the project scope? All right, now let's talk about interrupting, how to politely interrupt somebody when they are speaking. I always like to use the person's name because not only is it more polite that way, but it immediately gets their attention. Phrase 16. May I add something, Alex? May I add something, Alex? To add something is to contribute to the conversation. So we have a point that we want to bring to the conversation. We're adding to the conversation. May I add something, Alex? An option that's a little less formal in my work experience. This is a phrase I used all the time. Can I jump in here quickly? Can I jump in here quickly? And of course, you could start that with the person's name. Alex, can I jump in here quickly? To jump in means to interrupt. So I'm jumping in, I'm interrupting. Alex, can I jump in here quickly? Now, if someone interrupts you, you can say, if I could just finish my point. If I could just finish my point. Or a bonus phrase, very simply, you could just say, 1 second. 1 second. Phrase number 19, a little more formal, you could say, let me finish my thought, then I'd love to hear your perspective. Let me finish my thought, then I'd love to hear your perspective. Now, oftentimes in meetings, we have to present our ideas. We have to make suggestions, right? Phrase number 20, you can just very simply say, I suggest, or bonus phrase here, I propose, that's a little more formal. I suggest, or I propose, I suggest we start with a pilot program. Or I propose starting with a pilot program. Phrase number 21, here's something we can consider. Here's something we can consider. When you say this, you will have everybody's attention in the room because you've piqued their interest. You've gotten them curious about what you're going to say. Here's something we can consider. And then if you're in a more informal setting, phrase number 22, how about, how about, or you could also say, what about, how about starting with a pilot program? What about starting with a pilot program? Okay, guys, let's wrap up our final category, our phrases to help buy you some time to think. I think we all know that feeling when you're sitting in a meeting and somebody asks you a question that you're not really ready to answer immediately. Your brain needs a few extra seconds to find the right words. So here are some phrases that will buy yourself some time so you can answer gracefully without looking unprepared. Number 23. Good question. Let me think about that for a second. Good question. Let me think about that for a second. Number 24. I'd like to give that a little more thought. I'd like to give that a little more thought. And number 25, I'd like to revisit that after I've had a chance to review. I'd like to revisit that after I've had a chance to review. The word revisit means to discuss later. So you're telling the person their question is still important, but you want to talk about it later after you've had a little more time to think about it. I'd like to revisit that after I've had some more time to review. All right, guys, and there you have it, 25 powerful phrases to transform the way that you speak up in English during your meetings. I hope you found it helpful. But here's what most people don't realize. While you've mastered these phrases in in-person meetings, the game totally changes when you go virtual. So make sure you check out this video right here for some must-know language and phrases that you will need when you have your online meetings. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you, and I'll see you in this video next.